Why are you so angry?
Because I got about a smidge of water and you over here poaching it. Goddamn, son.
I don't have any water left, you know?
Use a rag like I did to wipe out your damn cup.
I don't have a rag.
Well, Scout mottos, be prepared.
I was prepared.
I was wondering what you were like. I was like,
he grabs the cup and he's like, well, there's not much water in here. Can I borrow it?
No, I it's not borrow. I'm stealing at that point. But I just took just enough to get it.
Nah.
Hello, everyone. My name is John Edwards, and with me, as always, is Zeke Baker, and together we make the Dad's Drinking Bourbon. Wherever you are, whatever time it is, thank you for making us a part of your day. Say hello to the folks, Zeke.
Hello, hello, hello.
It is a great day. We have former NFL Hall of Famer Tony Gonzalez sitting at the table with us. I'm kidding. His name is Tony Gonzalez, just like my name is John Edwards, and that is synonymous with a famous politician. Tony is synonymous with one of the best tight ends to ever play the game, but he also is at one of the best distilleries that we have tasted in recent memory, and that is Treaty Oak out of Texas. I think this has to be one of our favorite things coming from the Lone Star State right now. Tony, say hi.
hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm great. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
I'm just bummed there's not many Zeke Bakers in the world.
No, there's only one Ezekiel Baker I know. The funny thing, so Tony, is people in the boards and stuff like that, they'll say things like, hey, are you that Zeke from Dad's Drinking Bourbon? And it's like, do you know another Zeke Baker?
Seriously, like, how many have you run across in your lifetime? Because I'm still shooting pretty low here.
We alluded to it in the open, but there is so much stuff on the table. We have 3 picks here. Turok did down at Elixir Spirits in Spring Hill, Tennessee. Then we have all the stuff that you brought on top of it. There's some heirloom corn stuff. There's some experimental stuff that you guys are working on, as well as just all of your regular stuff, from your red-handed whiskey to the gin to the rye. I mean, how much stuff is actually here, and how many products do y'all actually have?
So the 6 that are labeled right there, those are our flagship products. So we have on the market right now our flagship products. We have 3 whiskeys and we have 3 gins for Treaty Oak Distilling. And then we also brought some of our kind of experimental stuff. We have some heirloom grain series. We have some cast strength antique gins that are really amazing stuff. So,
and you also have a dub that is lurking, checking over your shoulder. You want to try anything? It's all good.
Anytime you have this much alcohol, there's always going to be someone lingering.
Yes.
Drinking it.
Your flagship here, red-handed. Now that's something, anything that's there that's red-handed, you guys didn't distill that.
Correct. That's the name of our sourced whiskeys. So anything that says red-handed in front of it, on the table in front of you, you have the red-handed bourbon sourced from O.Z. Tyler in Kentucky and Davis Valley in Virginia. And then you have the red-handed rye, which is sourced from Shinley Distillery.
Gin, is that stuff that you guys all do down there in Texas?
Yeah, so all the gins we do, with no sourcing involved with that. We have our Waterloo number 9 gin, which is going to be our clear gin, London dry style. We use a lot of almost all Texas botanicals in that gin. And then we basically take that exact same product, we age it for 2 years, and we get our antique gin. That's going to be our barrel-aged gin. We age that in a fresh first-use American oak cask. And then our Old Yopon gin is kind of a one-off gin that we kind of developed and came up with. So using also really local Texas ingredients.
I think we want to learn more, but we want to drink something while we're doing it. Zeke, what do you think we should sip on while we first learn about Treaty Oak?
You want to start with the regular red-handed?
Red-handed bourbon's a good way to start out, man.
We'll go, at least for me, right to left, but...
This right here, it is 95 proof, 47.5% ABV. Now, you said this is O.Z. Tyler Is it a blend of both of them together?
Yeah, so it's going to be 80% of the OZ Tyler out of Kentucky, and that's about a 2-year-old OZ Tyler. 20% of the Davis Valley, which is going to be a little bit older juice out of Virginia. It's about a 4-year-old.
So one question I would have on that is, are those different mash bills?
Yep.
So you're mixing together, blending 2 different mash bills to come up with what you got, right?
Correct. Yep. I have those mash bills for you. The Davis Valley is going to be 66% corn, 20% barley, 14% rye. OZ Tyler is going to be a 70% corn, 21% rye, 9% barley. So that Davis Valley is actually a really interesting juice, man.
It is. Yeah, it threw me off.
Yeah, it's yeah. I saw your face when I read off the mash bill. It's kind of a unique product for sure. And I actually have on the other counter, I have like one of those honey pot barrels from the Davis Valley that I brought along too, man.
We're gonna have to try that. That might come after.
Yeah,
But,
We can try that when John has a bathroom break.
yeah.
well, I mean, there's so much on the table. We might have more than one bathroom break.
Might have a nap break too.
Exactly. Yeah. Zeke, what do you think about this red-handed as you're going through?
I like it. I will say that for both products being young, essentially, I don't get corn on the nose really, palate either. And I was trying to do the math in my head before you asked me a question and figure out where that final barley concentration percent comes down to, because it's definitely there and it's more noticeable than most, I guess, common products, but it's not overwhelming. But it does add an interesting, creamy, smooth balance to the thing moving through there. But then the rye kicks in pretty well, because one of those two had a high rye mash, right?
Yeah, the OZ Tyler is definitely 21% rye. So I would say this is more of a rye forward bourbon. Definitely drinks more like a rye forward bourbon, in my opinion.
The one thing that I can't get over, and we've been sipping on stuff, and anybody who knows us knows that we like to sip on stuff and get to know people before we actually start recording. So we have been drinking a lot of this stuff before, and we will continue to drink this as we're talking to you. The one thing I can't get over with a lot of your stuff is just the smoothness to it. And I know people hate that word. Our friend Ryan Peasley is listening and just kicking the table right now. But I mean, for stuff that is coming out that's 2 years, or it's not harsh. There's no super citrus youth component to it. Just like there isn't a harsh, astringent youth aspect to it as well. It all goes down pretty easy. I agree with Zeke what he was saying, how there's a little rye kick at the end, but for the most part, I get just a lot of nice vanilla bourbon notes that you would expect. Coats your mouth nicely. I definitely get a little bit more of the barley too, as you mentioned that, and I think that helps to kind of smooth things over a lot. But it's really, and I hate to put it that way because it's just good, right? Like
right.
It's not one of those things where you go, oh man, it's not bad for it to. It's just good.
Yeah, it's good bourbon, man. We've worked hard. Our owner and founder Daniel Barnes, he works a lot of relationships, being able to source really good whiskey, and we're super proud of that. And the nice thing about that red-handed, the bourbon that you guys are drinking right now too, is that's our most affordable option. So as far as when you see it on the shelf, I mean,
What does that come in at?
39. I was reading fingers. 39 here in Tennessee.
Shout out to PJ. Thank you for the assist.
Thanks, PJ. That's my driver, PJ.
And so even though, you guys are distilling, and not to jump around too much, but are distilling and will be distilling going forward, I assume the red-handed line, and with these being younger distilleries as well, you plan to continue sourcing and keeping that blend in the market?
Yes. Yeah. The idea is to keep the red-handed around. It may change, obviously, as distilleries, come and go, as their, products grow and develop, they get more expensive. Obviously we need to, be flexible with our red-handed, especially with that particular bourbon, because that was our original whiskey that we put on the market, was our red-handed bourbon, while our stuff was aging. So people know us for it, and we're looking to keep it around. So we have some products coming down the pipe that we've been tasting, different things that we've been, from different distilleries that we're looking to source the next iteration of red-handed from. And the idea is to keep it pretty much the same, try and keep the same price point, try and keep the same flavor profiles. Especially, guys got in their bar program on the menu or something. We don't want to all of a sudden one day have a bottle of bourbon that tastes completely different. So the idea is to kind of get something else out there that matches the flavor profile. And we're probably going to have that be the red-handed bourbon be a straight Kentucky product going forward. Not anytime soon, but that's kind of the idea, is have a really, really good Kentucky juice and finish aging it in Texas.
That's not bad what you're working with, though.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's almost like a spicy Nutter Butter. It's kind of what I rolled out with.
I could see that. I could definitely see that.
Do you have any Nutter Butters? Because I could go for Nutter Butter.
I wish, but
We've been sitting around here for a couple hours. I could really use some food. Zeke just bought a bag of pretzels to feed 8 people.
Yep.
I told you there's a pizza in the freezer the renters left.
Oh, well, why didn't we cook it up?
I told you.
Somebody get to work.
Yeah, I'll get my driver on it. Hold on. Sorry, PJ.
No. You don't.
I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
But no, I mean, especially if this being a blend of young product, even once mingled and then, assumably rebarreled and aged for a little bit of time, I think it would progress well. So if anything does change, I would just say, the consumers and all of us guys, we love transparency as much as possible.
Yeah, man, that's our big our big ethos, man. I mean, you can tell just by the name of it, calling it red-handed. We literally are, being upfront, and in fact, on the side of our bottle just tells you exactly where it was distilled. We kind of left the distillery name off of it, and we don't hide that. It's in all of our literature, but just so we can be a little bit flexible. But it's a great product, and we're really proud of it. We just sourcing whiskey comes and goes, ages, it gets more expensive, so we got to be flexible. But we're always going to be transparent with everything that we do.
So before we move on to something else, I do just want to take a step back here, right? Because there's a lot of different ways that people can start off, and they can source whiskey, they can make clear liquid. You guys did a little bit of both, but as you were saying, Daniel founded Treaty Oak, but tell a little bit of the origin of how Treaty Oak came to be, what you guys did in the early on. We just wanted something to drink while we were hearing the story, and we kind of went on a tangent, but tell us a little bit about the story of Treaty Oak, how everything came to be, and your role in it.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess I'll start with my role currently. I'm the Treaty Oak brand manager for the whiskey portfolio. I love our gins, but we found a guy that can be the brand manager a little bit better than me for the gins, and his name's Dan Udell. He's a badass, but I'm sorry, can I cuss on this?
Yeah,
it's like awesome. Just like country music. You can't use the
I was
F
holding
word.
it in like a turd, man. I was in the Army for 11 years, so when I hold it in, it kind of, So anyways, going back, I'm the whiskey brand manager for Treaty Oak. And then I also run our national sales team for Treaty Oak. So we're in 7 states currently. We're launching here in the next 2 months in California. It's our next huge market, so super proud on that. But going back to the founding of Treaty Oak, it was founded in 2006. By Daniel Barnes. He's the owner and founder of Treaty Oak. We were the 4th operating distillery in Texas. So there was a few that beat us to the punch as soon as they allowed distilleries to be legal again in Texas. And we were the 4th one. So we were all pretty close in range, but there's a big vodka guy out there that he was early on. I'm sure you know him.
Well, I mean, his ties back go deep.
Yeah.
His ties to the States are pretty deep.
Yeah. So we started off originally with rum. Rum was where we started. So we made an all Texas rum. We used molasses from the last sugarcane refinery in Texas, and we did everything on site and started off made a Treaty Oak rum, and a lot of people know us for that. We don't currently have a rum on the market. We may see that come back. We may not. We have a lot of it put back in barrels. We still have some pretty old rum. Some of the oldest rum in America we have on our properties.
Huh.
Yeah. American rum.
We would enjoy some at some point. If you ever want to come back, I mean, we don't want to.
We can come back and do. We can do a rum. Yeah.
So long as crude oil wasn't included.
Yeah. We started off doing rum, and we were pretty successful doing that, and cut our teeth doing that. Learned the trade doing that. I didn't join. I'm only been with the company for about 4 years, so I wasn't along in those early days, but a lot of learning curves, I'm sure. I've seen some of the pictures of the old equipment they used to use, and it was Yeah, it was pretty rough.
So, did you have a start in the spirits industry before you went to Treaty Oak, or?
In the spirits industry, my background is bartending. I bartended in Waikiki, is where I learned to bartend when I lived in Hawaii, and came to Texas, moved to Texas, and started bartending at Treaty Oak, and just found my place and my home there. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, Treaty Oak had started off with the rum. Now, did they go to the gin or whiskey next, or?
So yeah, the idea with Daniel when he founded the company was to always have a really good Texas whiskey. After the rum came the gins. We did a vodka for a little while. It was called Starlight Vodka. It was great vodka. As far as vodkas go, it was pretty clean and really smooth.
Just a tough market. Market in Texas, I'm sure.
Tough market in Texas, especially in Austin. There's a couple really big ones in Austin, if you guys don't know them. So tough market and really hard to be competitive in pricing with vodka. So we did it as long as we needed to. Paid the bills, kept the lights on, and more importantly, kept us making whiskey. The rum, the vodka. We did a sweet tea vodka for a while, and all of them. What they all did was keep the lights on and let us go out there and start making some whiskey. So. That's what we did, a lot of experimentation. And early on, since nobody made whiskey in Texas, since Prohibition until 2006 when people started getting distilling licenses, nobody really knew how to make good Texas whiskey. So it was a learning curve, to be sure. We made a lot of whiskey that I don't really think that there's any such thing as bad whiskey, but it was whiskey that maybe we didn't want to sell. So we had a lot of stuff put back, aging, and obviously we didn't rush anything. Everything we do is full size barrels. We put them out, and we don't try and speed anything up. So it was a lot of time.
Just weaving in some of the juice a little bit as we're talking. That rye, is that rye sourced? Or is that stuff you
Yeah, the red-handed rye is going to be sourced.
Red-handed, yeah. They caught you red-handed.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. What I'm seeing right now when I look at the bottle, I should have picked it up because I just see Dripping Springs USA. But if I turn around, it's red-handed rye.
Bottle.
I will say there is something a little bit funky to that rye. For me, it's probably not my favorite out of what's on this table. But then the next one I had, and that's the one I kind of want to focus on, because the Ghost Hill Texas Bourbon Whiskey that you guys are putting out, let's talk about this a little bit. This is damn good. And this thing has a mash bill. I'd rather have you just say it, but it's 57% Texas corn, 32% Texas wheat, and 11% American barley. What does that mean? When you're saying Texas corn, how close are you guys with the grain companies and the wheat company, and how are you actually getting that stuff? I think you were telling us a little bit before we started that you guys kind of have a unique situation going on with some of your grain producers. Yeah,
so we have a really close relationship with a guy named James Brown, believe it or not. Yeah. He's a really
great name tonight.
So he hates it. We gave him the nickname Godfather of Grain, but he actually hates that. So if he listens to this, he's probably going to get mad at me that I said that. But so James, don't listen to this if you're listening to this. But he owns Barton Springs Mill in Austin, Texas, and he's really big. He was actually nominated for a James Beard Award for his work with heirloom grains. Super smart guy, knows his shit. We're like, well, why not let him do that sciencey stuff and go find really good products for us to use in distilling our Ghost Hill bourbon. So he works within the state for the Ghost Hill bourbon. For the barley, obviously he goes outside of the state of Texas. But with the corn and the wheat, he brings those in from Texas. Pretty much up by the Texas Panhandle, and he works with all different farmers. So he works with farmers, works with heirloom grain series, open pollinated wheat. So that's it's a way of making or growing wheat where basically you can reuse the seeds the following year and kind of keep that grain going. So you find a series that's good, and you kind of open pollinate it and you get actual usable seeds. Whereas if you're using that kind of GMO stuff, and I know I'm might be talking out of my ass here, I'm no scientist, but From what I understand, you use those GMO products. They're only good. You plant them once, they grow. You can harvest them. You got to get new seeds.
It's okay. We're dumb and we're listening to you, so we're just gonna think that you're smart because you're the authority. So don't worry.
Right. But so he uses open pollinated wheat, heirloom grain corns. And then he brings all that stuff. And the interesting relationship we have with him is actually he's moving his entire granary, his business in Austin onto our property. We have a 28-acre ranch in Texas, and right outside of Austin. We're in Dripping Springs, Texas, so it's about 20 miles outside of Austin, and he's moving his entire operation out onto our property. So we're actually going to have a grain mill right on our property, we're on our distillery, and he's also building us a malting floor, so we'll be able to malt all of our single malts.
That's awesome.
Yeah, right on property.
So how close are you to the Guadalupe and the Comal?
They're both about 20 miles, I would say. Yeah,
That's fair enough.
yeah.
But I love this mash bill. I mean, just the sense that it is 57% corn, 32% wheat with 11% barley. It's unique all around in the sense that it's a wheater, but it's a high barley wheater. Mm-hmm. So it's got some real unique flavor to it. This is the one, full disclosure, and I'll let Zeke fill in some of the blanks. But Zeke went down and he was hanging out with Tarak down at Elixir Spirits, as he's known to do. And he came back and he said, John, I helped pick a treaty oak today. And I was like, where's that thing from? He's like, Texas. I said, it's from Texas. And he goes, it's damn good. And I had a sample of it, and that's the stuff I had was the Ghost Hill. And when we had that Bill and Zeke's Excellent Adventure, I was like, man, that is really good. So Zeke was a part of that pick. My hat's off to you, Zeke, but
That's actually what I'm drinking right now.
I've simply told anyone that asked me what I thought about it, find me something better that says it came out of Texas, and we can talk. I'll be more than honest and modest and say it's not the best thing in the world, but for a younger product, a blend, and again, based on, I guess, kind of the standard a lot of folks have when they look at Texas juice, they say, no shit, that's out of Texas?
Yeah.
I'm like, uh-huh.
But I think it's unique in the sense of, and this isn't because Tony's just sitting here, I wouldn't say it, but Zeke, you and I both know, this is something that's different. It's not even the fact that it's the best thing out of Texas. It's, I don't know what else I have in my cabinet that tastes like this. And when you want a change up and you want something that's not going to be the same thing all the time, I mean, there's only so much of certain distilleries I could drink. This is something that goes down really easy, and it's not breaking the bank either.
No, not at all. And obviously it will be very interesting to see, as time lends it more age, kind of knocks off some of the nuances here and there. My really brief notes on the stock issue Ghost Hill, not the blend we did, since that's what most people would find in the store. At first, the nose seemed to have a little bit of that just kind of sawdustiness of youth to it that you can get. I think that's really attributed to the corn probably, but you can just tell it's a younger product, especially if you've ever been around a sawmill or things like that. But then when the palate hit, it was significantly sweeter than I expected. It just kind of, whoa, turned my head a little bit. Did get a little bit of heat presence and alcohol in there towards the back end. And then right at the very end, it kind of almost did a 360 back to where the nose was of kind of chalky, sawdusty. But, it's a younger product, so I'm not going to be overly harsh on it for that. But the fact that it had that just super sweetness right when it first hit the tongue, assuming that stays where it is and age only lends it a better rounded out profile towards that front and back, I mean, should be some really quality juice coming out, before too long.
The thing for me, Zeke, is that the finish was all like just a sweet malt. Mm-hmm. And that's what I would differ with you with my notes, that I just got this sweet malty finish. And I think that's my favorite part of this one is the finish. I just love that sweet malt that lingers. It really does linger nicely. I think it punches above its weight class with the age and how it drinks. It doesn't drink, and there are youthful notes to it in certain points, but I definitely think it punches above, what's it, a 2-year or?
Yeah, it's right at a 2-year.
Yeah, I think it drinks a lot older than a 2-year.
Yeah.
Nice, noticeable flavors. It's not cask strength by any means either, so it's nice to have something that still gives you that much flavor, sub 100 proof.
So what is the plan for you guys when it comes to this bourbon and when it comes to, are you going to bring the rye in-house at any point, or? Essentially,
we're exploring different options with the rye, but eventually we will have a Ghost Ale rye sitting right alongside of it. But it's unique that you mentioned the sweetness, and I can talk a little bit about that. I was mentioning James Brown. Get on up. He actually, what the corn that we get from him is unique, so I can touch a little bit on that. It's a yellow number 1 corn, which is a food grade corn, which is not really used in distilling. Most distilleries use number 2 corn, and the number 1's food grade. It's all whole grain corn. What we found is kind of in that experimentation process that I was talking about earlier, in learning that we couldn't just take a mash bill and the same products from a Kentucky or a Tennessee product and do it in Texas and it come out the same way and with the same results. So we found that using that number 1 corn was a way to get a sweeter white dog, and then it goes into the barrel a lot sweeter, and that's one of the way we can counteract some of the harshness of aging in Texas. Aging in Texas, as you know, it's hot. You get a lot of interaction in and out of that barrel. And you almost can come up with, we kind of use the phrase burning it. It's not really, you're not really overheating it or anything, but it kind of gets like the real strong woodiness flavors to it.
It's hot as hell down there.
Yeah, it's hot as Yep. So yeah, that was one thing we did to kind of counteract that was a much sweeter white dog. So a lot of those sugars kind of carry over into
No, I mean, it totally makes sense.
Yeah.
The same way, John ended up going to Kentucky was he took his SATs with a number 1 pencil instead of a number 2.
Yeah, yep.
Zeke went to Georgia. Don't let him fool you. He's not getting that stellar education.
Surprisingly, though, I took every test all through pharmacy school with the exact same pencil. Same lead pencil.
Well, that's because most of the teachers did the work for you.
No, I really didn't use the same one.
By the way, in just kind of going through James Brown's nicknames in my head, I really think you should call him Mr. Dynamite.
Mr. Dynamite?
I think that's what you should call your James Brown, Mr. Dynamite, because he just keeps coming up with the hits.
Yeah.
Just like he keeps coming up with all these different grains. So, Mr. Dynamite, maybe he likes that better than the Godfather of grain.
Yeah, maybe. Well, I'll have to ask him that next time I see him.
Well, and I do want to make sure we don't skip over, while we're also on the subject of rye, the red-handed 10-year rye from Shinley. I don't know if John tasted the wrong thing, but I thought that thing was pretty damn stellar, son.
It's a little funky to me. There's just something that...
What kind of funk did you get? I mean, I don't like using, the checks all the boxes because it's just ambiguous and I think kind of a little bit of a scapegoat. But I literally, when I tasted it, thought everything I would look for in a rye it offered in some way in my really brief notes as we were moving through this table full of amazing stuff here. It was somewhere between a Thin Mint and an Andes and a Yoo-Hoo, and they all got together.
I did not get that, but it's okay.
I mean, with the world, currently all jumping all over the MGP 10 to 14 year aged rye train, I would gladly put that up against it, and I think you'd see some good results.
I am more of this Ghost Hill bourbon guy. You can have that rye and I'll have that bourbon and we'll be fine. I mean, the good thing is with a table like this and when you're talking about bourbon or whiskey, that's the type of thing that is so great about this. I want to call it a sport, but it's not a sport. It's a hobby. It's so great about this hobby that, it's going to be different strokes for different folks. And 99% of the time, Zeke and I do not have the same palate and what we gravitate towards. Now, when we do, the one thing I will tell you, Tony, is when we do find something that we agree upon, we know it's really special.
Yeah. The nice thing about this curated, like kind of 3 whiskeys that are in front of you, our flagship whiskeys that are in the market right now, is that I do believe that there is kind of something for everybody in that mix. you have your kind of rye, be it a lighter mash bill rye. I mean, it's only it's a 53% rye. It's not overtly in your face rye. It's kind of an entry level rye, in my opinion. I mean, it's 10-year-old. It's kind of, again, to use that trigger word, for smooth, but you know what I mean? It's a rye that doesn't kick you in the teeth. We got our red-handed bourbon. That's a great bourbon, in my opinion. And our Ghost Hill bourbon, with that being wheated, tastes completely different than a red-handed bourbon. So.
Zeke likes the smooth rye because it's something that's gonna like spoon him and tell him everything's gonna be okay.
Hey, I'm telling you, for 100 proof 10-year rye product, that thing, I didn't see anything off-putting about it. It's kind of one of those where certain people just tell you they don't like rye.
Yeah,
which
for sure.
I feel like that side of the coin can be more specific too than, well, I don't like bourbon because mashes are all over the place, but rye, yeah, your mash can vary, but your profile is still a lot more similar. I think that'd be one that I would challenge somebody of, I'm not really a rye guy. Okay, let me pour you something and I'll tell you what it is.
Yep.
And see what kind of results you give me.
Exactly. So let me ask you, put you on the spot. I know you're probably going to give me the industry answer, but what's your favorite?
Mine's a Ghost Hill bourbon, hands down.
See, I like this guy. Yeah, I knew that when he came in with a glorious beard and no hair on the top of his head, that him and I were going to get along, Zeke.
I'm glad you went ahead and went that route because I was about to.
Well, you know what? He doesn't have a mustache that screams, I have a van.
Yeah.
He just has a great look that screams like, I did something great for this country. That's what he looks like.
That's awesome. I'm just hearing like, I'm proud to be an American.
Where at least I know I'm free.
Yeah, like a flag flying behind me.
If you come to a Predators game, they will play that song once a game. So come on back up. We'll take you to a hockey game and we'll sing that song together.
Sounds good, man.
So are we going to be brave and dive into some other stuff here, John Boy?
Absolutely. But what I want to make sure before we get there, what is the plan with the Ghost Hill? Are you going to keep that 2 years as you're going? Or are you going to have some older ones? Or are you going to play around? Because I understand a little bit that you have to feed the beast and you have to kind of keep churning it out and the whole production, supply and demand kind of deal. But what is kind of, if you're thinking about what's the 5-year, 10-year plan for the Ghost Hill Bourbon, where do you see that going?
Right. We kind of see it going in the way, and just to give you a little backstory here, we completely revamped and renovated our distillery back in January. So we gutted all the old equipment out. We brought in a new 35-foot continuous column still. We're running, a huge production. We basically, before we were producing about 2 barrels a day, and now we're producing 10 to 12 barrels a day. So we're putting a lot of juice back. And so the idea with the Ghost Hill, to not dive too in depth to it, is basically to have it most likely a 4-year-old bottled in bond. So that's the goal. That's the end goal, man. And if we get there, when we get there, I mean, yeah.
Has there been a Texas bottled in bond yet?
You're putting me on the spot with that. I'd be willing to say no, and
I'm just I'm thinking no. I am hypothesizing no. I'm sure that Wade is not listening to this podcast, but if he were, I'm sure that he would correct us, and I'll probably reach out to him and ask him anyway. But I don't think there's a Texas bottled in bond. That would be really cool.
Yeah. So that's the idea, man. That's what Daniel's been throwing around. That's the end goal, and I totally agree that I would love to see that. This juice is getting better and better, and we're actually finding that some of the older stuff, like in between 4 and 5 years, that's kind of the sweet spot, man. We go much longer than that, and you're just getting too much of that interaction in Texas.
I remember when we did the blend on that one. There was anywhere from 1 year to I think maybe 4.5, and there was one that was a 3-year barrel that we used in the blend, and both blends, that's the base for it. We laughed as we were blending, thinking, I'm really not sure you can just flat out beat this 3-year 100 proof product on its own. Like, just put a label on all these and we'll say we blended it. Smartest man in the room right here.
Yeah.
Did you take any of that home though? That's what I want.
No. It was going around in the market and other people needed to blend, so I wasn't quite that fortunate. Oh, I did want to circle back too. So with all the new equipment and everything else, as far as everyone running, distilling, making the white dog and juice, seemingly, is all that still the same team and everything's intact?
Yeah, man, we've had our distillery crew, man. They've all been there. I mean, even the youngest guys that are at the distillery have been there probably 2 years. With the oldest, the core group of guys that work in the distillery, they've all been there from the beginning, man.
No, that's nice. Yeah. Much better not have any unexpected curveballs come out.
Yeah, man. We got a solid crew of guys and girls actually that work out there. Shout out to you, Melody. It's a great group of people, man. We're a big family. We're a growing family. I've seen it grow in the last 4 years from being like, man, maybe 20 employees, if max, maybe. I might even be high on that number, but I think we're working our way towards like 60 right now. So
nice.
I have a new number 2 favorite sitting at this table.
Is it me?
Well, yes.
Yeah.
But do you want to move to Nashville and host a podcast with me? Zeke, you're out.
Whatever.
The Waterloo number 9 gin. I mean, I still think that Ghost Hill Bourbon is my favorite, but that Waterloo number 9 gin, and I haven't even got to the barrel aged gin, and I can't wait to try that one. But this, you said it's all Texas botanicals, but it's crazy. The nose on it is great.
I get 0 armadillos.
No, there's 0 armadillos, but the floor, it's just
there's
so
no
floral.
armadillos harmed in the making of our gin, just to be clear.
Not even the Texas State Fighting Armadillo.
No. We leave those alone, too.
The great Scott Bakula movie, Necessary Roughness. Anybody that is wondering what's going on, but that was a great movie. What's the one that he's the most famous for? Why am I not thinking of it?
I didn't think anybody from Unnecessary Roughness went on to any other fame.
Kathy Ireland was the kicker.
Do you not know who Kathy Ireland is?
I mean, I don't. At that point in my life, I was watching a football movie for a football, like not.
Sinbad was the teacher he was the professor who ended up being a great lineman.
This is crazy that this is actually the second time today that I'm discussing this movie.
Wait, somebody else? PJ brought up Unnecessary Roughness?
It's funny.
Oh, man. That does sound like PJ would bring up. But this gin, I really like it. I can't wait to try that barrel-aged gin. I know Zeke just brought it over, but I really, really like. It's just super floral and light, and for Zeke and I that do like to dabble into gins and tequilas and rum, and we just kind of say you need a palate cleanser from bourbon.
Yeah,
this is something that I could see going very, very well in a cocktail, but it's something I don't mind just pouring in my Glencairn and just enjoying.
Is this your first time trying it right now?
Your gin, yes.
Yes. Wow. That's crazy. So that Waterloo number 9 gin. Waterloo, in case for all your listeners out there, if you don't know, it was the original name of Austin before it was Austin. So before Stephen F. Austin was in the area and became whatever he became, governor.
Well, PJ told me Daniel just really liked ABBA.
PJ's wrong again. Sorry, PJ. You're the pincushion right now, man, because you don't have a mic.
I should have had one. I should have set one up.
I know. You should have told me. You should have told me. I would have fixed it for you.
Bridesmaid, never the bride.
Katherine Heigl is looking for you in 27 dresses. But anyways, tell us more about this gin.
Yeah, man. So it's definitely a lavender forward gin. It is a London dry style.
That is it. It's that floralness. The second you mention it's all of that lavender.
Especially, I mean, you drinking it out of a Glencairn, you're getting that right up in your nose. So you're definitely going to get that lavender up front in your nose. For me, when you're tasting through it, you're going to kind of get like some of that. We have ginger in it as well, so you're going to kind of get some of that middle ginger heat in the middle of your tasting, and then kind of finishes with those citrus zests. We got grapefruit, orange, and lemon zest. And one of the unique things that we put in this gin is actually Texas pecan.
Really?
Yeah, Texas pecan from Menard, Texas, home of the great man Daniel Barnes. Yeah, so we source our pecan from actually the hometown of Daniel Barnes, so our owner and founder. But it's got lavender, obviously juniper. It's got some coriander in there as well. Star anise.
Is there such thing as a Texas pecan?
Yeah. Pecan.
Well, there's a difference.
Yeah.
Sorry, a little Georgia humor with you.
Yeah, that's right.
I had to throw it in there. There are people that will chastise me if I don't bring these things up.
Yeah. I'm just going to be full disclosure. I'm from the north, so I'm from right outside of Chicago.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yep. From a town called Zion, Illinois. Yeah, it's right on the border of Illinois and Wisconsin.
Oh, so you're way up. You don't have that accent though.
I haven't lived there for a really long time. I lived in
Says the New Englander.
Yeah.
Well, when you said that you lived in Hawaii, I'm like, you really kind of got more of that Hawaiian vibe than you do like a Chicago vibe.
Yeah. Well, I lived in Hawaii for 11 years before I moved to Texas, so right before I moved here. So
you definitely have more of like the laid back aloha vibe.
yeah, there's definitely a reason I don't live in or around Chicago anymore. So yeah.
So sports teams, are you Chicago or are you?
We're gonna dive into that. Yeah, I'm actually an Eagles fan, man. Believe it or not.
Let's circle back to number 9. Did you take any notes or tidbits on number 9 there, John Boy?
I think we talked about that Waterloo number 9 enough in the sense that I agree with what Tony said. I did get a lot of the lavender and that ginger, and I wasn't understanding it until he said it, but I definitely did get the orange, and I know I got the assist from Tony on that, but I would agree with him that there was orange there at the end.
Oh, the biggest takeaway I got from it was just how much of a sugar rush there was on the front end. You think of a dry gin, you expect it to be just, dry, somewhat parching, and then, a little bit of linger of the botanicals. But to me, the whole front end was just, the whole front of my mouth was just, concentrated, a sugary feeling. And then they just kind of eased you into the botanicals that were behind it. Literally almost, maybe like some type of, candy. I don't know, a taffy or something, but something where you're just chewing, you're chewing just straight sugars, like a little kid, and you shouldn't be. And then that flavor comes in behind it. But none of them are off-putting, and especially to be called a dry gin.
Yeah.
It wasn't drying. I literally put in parentheses, should be called very mild gin.
Very mild gin, yeah.
Because,
it's an interesting feedback, man. I've never heard it described like that, but definitely positive notes. I would not disagree with you.
And especially out of a Glencairn, like you said, nothing's going to be more concentrated on a profile, especially for something of this type of distillate.
Well, I changed my mind. This antique gin I like better than the Waterloo number 9. Yeah. And I get a lot more ginger than lavender on that antique gin, and I could just be full of shit. You never know, but...
So the uniqueness of the antique gin, man, is essentially what we do is we take the Waterloo number 9 and we take it straight off the still and we put it in a first use fresh American oak barrel. So, that barrel doesn't have it's not a bourbon barrel, it's not a rum barrel, it's not anything. It's first use fresh off the truck from the cooperage.
Do you char it at all?
Char number 3, the same exact barrels that we get in for the Ghost Hill bourbon, we use for the gin as well. So it makes for a real interesting product, and the majority of people that are out there doing aged gins are doing them in used barrels. So you're picking up flavors from whatever was in the barrel before, and that's just not something we wanted to do from the beginning. We wanted to make sure it was just gin and oak. That's you definitely get some kind of I kind of get, you get all the same kind of characteristics of the number 9, but you kind of add some of those, like I call them like Christmas spices. You're getting some of those vanillins and nutmegs and stuff like that coming through as well.
A lot of pronounced flavors for sure. And it's kind of funny because in some ways it kicks me a little too much, and then sometimes I like it. Which way am I going on this one,
Well, no, I definitely get the lavender, I think, is a little bit muted in the antique, but the ginger and the other botanicals are kind of played up, the fruity orange. And so I almost think like you take what the biggest thing that you got in the beginning of the number 9 and turn that down, and then turn up the mid palate to the finish. That I think they're kind of a yin and yang to each other.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, man. Yeah, couldn't have described it better myself.
See that? Somebody thinks I'm smart, Zeke.
No, I was
It's
talking
not
about
you.
what I was talking about what Zeke said.
Oh, problem.
Way to go, John. I knew where this was going. The little kid just had the big smile. And, womp womp.
I set myself up for that
Yeah,
one
you
big
did.
time. Way to go. And you said I wasn't a good T-ball coach.
That'd be volleyball, more like a throwing out the spike, the lob.
I do like the yin and yang comment though, man. I'm surprised I've never used that, and I might steal it, just so you know.
Feel free.
Yeah.
That's what we're here for. So, man, there is so much on the table. We went through a whole bunch of stuff. There is one more gin I think we have to go through.
There is the Waterloo Old
Yopon.
Yopon, okay.
Yeah, so the quickest thing about the old Yopon, man, is it's an old time style gin. So it is back sweetened with some local wildflower honey that we get right from near the distillery. The cool thing about that is we use Yopon is a member of the Holly family, and we source that very locally in a town called Bastrop, right outside of Austin. It grows like crazy, and people want it off their property. So there's a company we use called Lost Pines Yopon, and they go out and they forage it off of people's property, and they dry it out. It's kind of like a tea product, and we use it to make a gin.
No, that's crazy. It's almost the mid palate on it just has something funky, like it's floral and funky and honey, but when you said tea, it's almost like a tea in the mid palate.
Yeah.
It's not in the very beginning, it's not at the end, but right in the middle.
I thought it definitely nose-wise smelled more gin. And, obviously not knowing about the honey until you just mentioned it, but it makes perfect sense because right on the palate, you get a little flash of sugars, and then the gin really seemed to come in much stronger than with the number 9. And the biggest note I had was it just got really viscous. And that's when you said honey, like, okay, well, now I know what's going on here. And the reaction is basically, I would say gin and a honey style base. And that viscosity of it just amplifies the profile so much more. I think if you were any gin fan, that's going to be more ideal and probably better in cocktails. Mm-hmm. Admittedly, not being a textbook gin fan, it wasn't my favorite, but again, I could see where using it in that realm, just because it just ramped up so much in the mid palate and had such a thickness to it for any clear spirit. To me, I thought that was pretty unique.
Right. Yeah. And what I really like about that old Yopon gin, man, is like I said, I came from my background in the spirits world is bartending. And it's not very often that bartenders get something new, right?
Yeah.
Like there's very, very rarely does something new with a completely new flavor profile come along. And that was what intrigued me the most when we developed the old Yopon gin, was the fact that like I can go give that to a bartender and be like, go. It's crazy the versatility of it. You can use it, as the primary ingredient in a cocktail. You can use it as a modifier. I've made some like crazy like margarita concoctions using.
Oh, and even at 90 proof, the way it just kind of hangs and has that extra heaviness to it.
Right.
I can imagine it gives you much more options in that space.
Yeah, it's definitely a versatile product, man. And when bartenders get their hands on it and start playing around with it, it's kind of crazy to watch their eyes light up and they're like, wow, something new.
Yeah, it's definitely noticeable. Like, all right, now Glenn probably going to throw some people off. I'm like, whoa, what is this? Mm-hmm. But again, that other side of things where you're doing cocktails and complementing other flavors, I could see that one being the, I guess, flagship gin, possibly, quote unquote.
Yeah, and we're super excited to have that to offer in our gin portfolio and our gin lineup. So,
and granted, this is technically a bourbon show, but I mean, admittedly impressed by the gins all around. I even wonder what's the balance on gin going out the door to a bourbon and rye.
Right now, man, it would probably be slightly 60-40 to gin, and that's mainly because of the Waterloo number 9 is it's heavy in the bar programs, so that's probably the main reason that there's a little bit of a skew onto the gin side, but they're pretty neck and neck.
Well, we go back and forth, Zeke. We don't just do bourbon. We dabble.
All the time.
We dabble all the time. But all this stuff on the table, what's next? What do you think? There are some things that we did have that were experimental. And I know just in the sense of time, I do want to mention that there is a red, white, and blue that is a 1-year-old bourbon. And we don't need to go into this and pour it. We already had it. Tell us a little bit about this one.
Yeah, so this was one of the things coming down the pipe is kind of our heirloom grain series. I keep mentioning James Brown. Get on up. But I think I'm just going to keep mentioning him now because we got some cool sound bites for it. But so this one was hoppy blue corn, soft red winter wheat, and number 2 row malted barley. So it was a really unique product that we, like I said, it was all heirloom grain. So all, stuff that James brought to us and was like, this, use this in some whiskey. And our head of product development, Phil Dormont, he ran with it and did it's a pretty small batch of this. So this is probably not going to go to market right now, but this is something that we may do in full production eventually and have, a red, white, and blue Ghost Hill bourbon. So
well, I will tell you, for 1 year old, and I know this is experimental, and there's always something to be said when you let us have some of that, because you're like, listen, this is experimental. Don't go on and say it's super young. Don't go on. I mean, not like we had any pretense with each other, but there's almost an understanding. It's like, this is something that you guys are working on. It's not the finished product. We're getting a sneak preview of what it could be. But in 1 year, I am not blowing smoke, guys. I'm not bullshitting. There is no... You gave that to me, and I said, there is no freaking way this is 1 year old. I said, how old is this? I still don't believe it's 1, Zeke. It is the smoothest and easiest to drink. I would expect a 1 year old whiskey to be harsh and just some way, shape, or form kind of tear up my throat with those like tiny little razor blade feeling, like it was a little bit rough on your throat. But there is nothing about that made me feel like it was young at all.
Yeah.
No, I mean, where that goes, definitely keep us in touch. If anybody to test it at a 6-month-ish interval, we're more than happy to send back a feedback card.
We won't even tell our listeners about it. We'll just tell you guys.
We'll include, emails, addresses for future mailings, etc. But, to a degree, it does make sense, especially with everyone talks about the temp and the climate, etc. In Texas, there's going to be different nuances that folks have to navigate and figure out. And then, especially if it's the step required of using better grains. They've got to be able to stand up and be stronger to deal with harsher conditions. Mm-hmm. Then, at least paper, when you kind of put it all together, it does make really good sense. We took a little extra time, probably a little extra money, put in, not your standard run-of-the-mill grain, something that's got a little more backbone to it.
Right.
And, we're going to make sure we age it correctly and then also taste it throughout the process. And when it's ready, it comes out. I mean,
exactly.
It just all kind of lines up in the, synergy well.
Yeah. I think, if I'm not mistaken, man, I think this was kind of the fan favorite out of everybody that was in the house tonight tasting out of our products here. That I feel like this was the fan favorite.
Oh yeah, no one had a negative word to say at all.
Not at all.
That's why we asked before we went on air, like, all right, so is this something that's really going to happen? Because I don't want to talk about it, and then it maybe not happen, or like, well, we've got a few barrels of the juice that might show up here or there, but not everyone's ever going to see this.
Well, we could just say it's good to know that they are working on other stuff there, and I think that's the moral of the story, is that they're not just sitting on their laurels. They're not just sitting on the Ghost Hill. They're not just sitting on the Red Handed. They're not just sitting on the gin. They are trying new stuff all the time. There's a port finish. We all agreed not to talk about that because Zeke and I are the worst people to talk to about a wine finish. It's just not our jam. There is one that was barrels that were made and had bourbon in it. Then it got sent to a brewery, and then it had beer finished in it. Then it got sent back to you guys, and then you guys finished with it. So there's stuff, moral of the story, there's so much stuff that is going on.
Yeah, man. We're big with innovation, experimentation. If you notice, there's a little logo. It's a little kanji logo on the bottles that you can see. It's a little Japanese. It might be covered up by those labels on that bottle, but it's a little Japanese symbol, and it's called Hanzoku. And Hanzoku is basically it's the Japanese phrase for rebelling, but rebelling from a place of knowledge and science, and basically not just rebelling without a cause. It's rebelling because the norm's not working. And
so you're a rebel with a cause.
We're a rebel with a cause, man, and we have the knowledge and experimentation and innovation to back it up, man. And that's just kind of it's a little thing that we threw on the bottles, and it's something that Daniel kind of preaches to us, and that everyone at Treadio kind of has that, man. And it's an amazing atmosphere to work for a company like that, because it's 2 a.m. I wake up and I'm like, oh man, I got this crazy idea, and like. Half the time it's because I just left the bar, and I'm, but I'll text Daniel and be like, hey, this is a badass idea, man. There's never a time where it's like, that's a dumb idea. It's like, well, let's try it, or let's research it. Let's find out, and that's kind of just the atmosphere, man. It's like, we're all we all like to claim to be innovators. We all are just like passionate people about making really great whiskey, making really great gin. On our property, we have, like I said, we have a 28-acre property. We have a full-service restaurant, and that even transcends all the way down to everybody that works in the service side of the house, like the restaurant. We make amazing barbecue, and it's a great family to work for, man.
Well, I know where I will be going next time I'm in Austin, but where can the folks find you? Are you on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all that good stuff?
Yeah, so on Facebook and Instagram, we have both Treadio. The whiskey and ranch is kind of its own thing, and then we also have the Waterloo Gin. So you can look us up on Facebook at Treaty Oak, Instagram at Treaty Oak, and then also on Facebook at Waterloo Gin, and on Instagram at Waterloo Gin. So
perfect. Well, Tony, thank you so much for coming and talking to us. We'd love to have you come in again, see what's coming on down the line. But this has been an amazing night. Thank you so much for spending some time.
Yeah, thank you guys, and shout out to my man PJ here for driving me around today. And I thought he was making us pizza, but apparently that didn't happen.
It did not happen. But Zeke, the folks can find us on Facebook at Dad's Drinking Bourbon, Instagram at Dad's Drinking Bourbon, Twitter at Bourbon Dads. They can join our Facebook group, answer a couple questions, come in. It is 3,000 strong and growing, just like Flintstones Vitamins. It's a great place. A lot of people talking. A lot of good things going on in there. Zeke, they can also find us on their favorite podcast provider. Did you know that? And
I did.
They could leave us an open and honest review, just like we are open and honest about all the whiskey that we try, or gin, or tequila, or vodka, or whatever the hell we're having. Please leave us an open and honest review, but leave us a review because it helps people find us. It actually bumps you up in the search results, so go ahead and do that. Zeke, where else can the folks find us?
Good old Nashville, Tennessee.
Cheers.
Ciao.
Cheers.